Assalamu alaikum everyone. Today we are going to talk about another complication of cirrhosis, that is ascites. It is the accumulation of free fluid into the peritoneal cavity, at least 500 ml of the fluid. Now come to the clinical features or sign and symptoms. The patient may be asymptomatic in case of small amount of fluid, or the patient may present with abdominal distension or discomfort in the abdomen, and may present with fullness in the flank, and shifting dullness can be appreciated by the doctor on percussion of the abdomen. Fluid thrill or fluid wave in case of marked ascites can also be appreciated when the fluid is more than 2 liters. And the pleural effusion in only 10% of the cases can be found on the right side of the chest because of congenital defects in the diaphragm, which causes the shifting of fluid from the abdomen into the thoracic cavity. So these were the sign and symptoms. Now come to the pathogenesis of ascites. In the pathophysiology, when the patient has a cirrhosis, there is increased intrahepatic resistance to the portal flow of the blood. As a result, due to this increased resistance, the sinusoidal pressure is higher. Due to this increased sinusoidal pressure, ascites or fluid starts accumulating into the abdomen. Due to this increased intrahepatic resistance, there is a release of some vasodilators which reduces the arterial resistance. Due to this reduced arterial resistance, there is a splanchnic vasodilation, so that more blood flow enters into the portal circulation, which also results in ascites formation. Due to decreased arterial resistance, there is reduced total peripheral resistance in the systemic circulation, which leads to hypoperfusion of the kidneys. Due to the hypoperfusion of the kidney, there is activation of renin angiotensin aldosterone axis. Due to the high levels of aldosterone, there is a sodium and water retention in the body, which ultimately leads to this ascites formation. So splanchnic vasodilation, sodium and water retention, and increased sinusoidal pressure ultimately leads to ascites formation. Also, because the liver function is impaired, so low levels of albumin in the blood, these low levels of albumin also contributes to the ascites formation because of reduced plasma oncotic pressure. So this was a little bit pathophysiology of ascites formation. Now come to the next step, that is investigation. The ultrasound abdomen is the gold standard or investigation of choice in case of ascites. The second investigation is paracentesis. In this technique, 10 to 20 ml of the ascitic fluid is taken with the syringe from the abdomen to check the various measures, like in this by this technique the protein measurement is important. This protein measurement is important to check the proteins in the ascitic fluid in order to measure the SAAG, that is serum ascitic albumin gradient. This gradient is very important, and this can be calculated by subtracting the ascitic fluid albumin from the serum albumin. By this SAAG, we can diagnose the underlying cause, whether the ascites is because of portal hypertension or it may be because of non-portal hypertension causes. So in order to find the underlying cause, this gradient is very important. So if this gradient is more than 1.1 gram per deciliter or 11 gram per liter, then the fluid is transudative. That is, this fluid has very low levels of protein, and the cause is portal hypertension. Then this portal hypertensive cause is further classified into ascitic proteins. When below 2.5 gram per deciliter, then the cause is cirrhosis. And if the ascitic fluid proteins are greater than 2.5 gram per deciliter, then the cause may be heart failure, Budd-Chiari syndrome, constrictive pericarditis, veno-occlusive diseases, and protein losing enteropathy or malnutrition. Let's take an example. If the serum albumin is 4 gram per deciliter and this ascitic fluid albumin is 1, then 4 minus 1 is 3. So this SAAG gradient is 3, that is greater than 1.1 gram per deciliter. So this one is actually the ascitic fluid protein. So that it represents that protein levels are very low in the ascitic fluid. That is, the fluid is transudative. So 4 minus 1 is 3. This gradient is 3. Then the cause is portal hypertension. Now come to, if this SAAG gradient is less than 1.1 gram per deciliter, then the fluid is exudative. That is, exudative means protein rich fluid. It contains very high levels of protein, and the cause is no portal hypertensive cause. and the causes are malignancy and acute pancreatitis, nephrotic syndrome, tuberculosis, lymphatic obstruction, and some infections and hypothyroidism. And remember, the most important causes of ascites are cirrhosis, heart failure, and malignancy. These were the most important and the common causes of ascites. Let's take an example in this case. If the serum albumin levels are 4 and the ascitic fluid and albumin ascitic fluid levels are 3. So 4 minus 3 is equal to 1. That is less than 1.1 gram per deciliter. And this 3 indicates that this fluid is exudative. That is very high protein content in the ascitic fluid. So 4 minus 3 is equal to 1, that is less than 1.1 gram per deciliter, and the fluid is exudative and the cause is non-portal hypertension. So this was SAAG, and it is very important to check the underlying cause of the ascites. Now come to the other parameters in this paracentesis. By this fluid which is taken by this paracentesis technique, the other parameters can be checked, like amylase. If the amylase levels are greater than 1000 units per liter, then the cause is pancreatitis. And if the neutrophil count in this ascitic fluid, which is basically taken by the syringe by paracentesis technique, is greater than 250 into 10 s to 6 per liter, then this indicates the bacterial peritonitis or any other infectious cause. This cytology is also important to check the malignancy may be the cause of ascites. And then gram staining and culture is also important to rule out the organisms. And triglyceride levels are, if greater than 1.1 gram per liter in the ascitic fluid, it indicates that the cause is lymphatic obstruction because of chyle presence of chyle or triglycerides in the ascitic fluid. The appearance of this ascitic fluid, which is taken by paracentesis technique, is also important. As if the cause is cirrhosis, the fluid is clear, straw color, or light green in color. In the malignancy, the fluid is blood stained. And in case of infections, the fluid is cloudy, and lymphatic obstruction, milky white fluid is present. So this was the little bit investigations. Now come to the management of ascites. In case of transudative ascites, the management is: first, restrict the sodium and water intake. Restricted to the sodium is restricted to 100 millimoles per 24 hours, means one day. No salt diet should be added, and the drugs having the sodium should be avoided, like sodium valproate, phantoin, penicillin, cephalosporins, and some other antibiotics as well. And the drugs causing the sodium retentions, like corticosteroids, estrogen, and as well as NSAIDs, that is non-steroidal and anti-inflammatory drugs, should also be avoided, because these drugs causes the sodium retention in the body. As the sodium retention causes also water retention, because of water osmotically follows the sodium, so more water in the body further exaggerate the ascites. Also restrict the water to 1 to 1.5 liters per 24 hours if the sodium levels falls below 125 millimoles per liter because of excessive use of diuretics. So if the water intake is more and patient has hyponatremia, it further exaggerate the dilutional hyponatremia. So this must be restricted to water must be restricted to 1 to 1.5 liters per 24 hours. Now come to the second step in case of transudative ascites, that is give the patient diuretics. Spironolactone, that is aldosterone blocker or aldosterone receptor antagonist, it is the drug of choice. But here the two side effects are there, that is patient may develop gynecomastia, that is enlargement of breast, as well as hyperkalemia, high levels of potassium in the blood. So this spironolactone can be substituted with amiloride, which is also aldosterone receptor blocker. The dose for spironolactone should be 100 to 400 mg per day, and amiloride should be 100 mg per day. And this amiloride, if the patient cannot tolerate these drugs, then and the patient has very high levels of potassium, then the patient can be shifted on furosemide, that is loop diuretics. But here the side effects of loop diuretics are electrolyte imbalance, electrolyte imbalance also, renal impairment. These are the two side effects of renal impairment. These are the two side effects of furosemide. Remember, the diuretics should be titrated not to remove more than 1 liter of the fluid per day, so there is no fall in the body weight of the patient. And the measurement of body weight is very important if the patient has ascites. Now come to the another technique, that is paracentesis. It can be used for diagnosis as well as it can be used for therapeutic purpose. So it is a first line for the refractory ascites. Refractory ascites is basically if the patient cannot tolerate to the diuretics due to hyponatremia or renal impairment, then this is called refractory ascites. Then these type of patient, the first line therapy is paracentesis, that is removal by the syringe. And the IV colloids should be given 6 to 8 gram per liter of fluid removal. Means 1 liter of fluid removed, then 6 to 8 gram of the colloids should be replaced in place of this fluid. Now come to another procedure, that is TIPS, transjugular intrahepatic portosystemic stent shunt. It is only used when the alternative is frequent large volume paracentesis, or the patient is waiting for the liver transplant and has reasonable liver function, but the side effect is hepatic encephalopathy. This is very dangerous. Now come to the exudative ascites, pregnancy or infection or tuberculosis or any other cause. Paracentesis should be done, and no volume expanders like colloid should not be needed in these cases. So this was all about ascites. Thank you so much for watching this video.